Hi everyone. In this video, I'm going to um, write a Java and React.js code um, of the module that I'm working on right now. So right now I'm working on one of the big ERP. The ERP is really taking care of HR, payroll, I mean office management, the calendar, email, our flow management system, guideline, reimbursements, question and answer, survey. So, I mean, the CRP is taking a lot, and this is developed with React.js as a front end and Java, especially Spring Boot, as a back end. So here, one of the module um, um, I'm planning to work today is asset management. If I go to the asset management, so in the asset management, if you look at this is a B2B application. In this, the companies can add all their assets. Assets could be like electronic assets where they buy the computers and all those things, computer, server, everything, and could be other assets. Maybe for the office they buy AC, um, power plant, or whatever they buy. Maybe in office the furnitures and everything, right? So these are all the assets. So when you buy the assets, it is very important all the companies to do the asset value calculation. Say if we buy one computer in, I mean, if we buy 100 computers to our office today, maybe after 1 year or 2 year or 3 year, so we need to know what is the value of the computer or asset we purchased today. Because if you look at any company website, they say that what is the value of the company. I mean, leave the different tangible or intangible. This is an asset. We are only trying to calculate like what is the overall asset, who is managing, who is which particular, I mean, which employee is holding the particular asset. One employee holding how many assets. I have maybe external monitor, computer, or two computer, something like that, right? So the assets can be assigned to the employees, something like that. I mean, everything is managed in the entire system. What you see it as the AMC, insurance, purchase orders, and everything is managed. Yeah. So this particular video is about primarily to calculate the asset depreciations. Okay. So when we say asset depreciation, as I told you, right, every asset we purchase, it has some age, it has certain values to calculate. After 2 year, the system can even tell you that okay, this particular asset, what's the current value from the purchased value. Okay, so I went and done a little bit of study. I mean, 3 days I went and searched across websites, even ChatGPT and everything. I gathered, and I found out that there are 11 types of depreciation has been calculated. Okay, so I mean, because this is a ERP, we cannot give any instruction to the company to which method they're supposed to use. Okay, it is like if you are deploying this ERP to one of the company can choose. Okay, for the electronic asset, I will use a straight line depreciation method. Maybe for a furniture, I'll be using a diminishing method. Maybe a company is buying a car or some kind of motor, right? So the offices may have some caps or whatever. So those things may have use-based method, right? So if you buy a car, they may expect the car supposed to give at least 2 lakhs kilometer before the car goes to scrap or whatever. So until then, I mean, it also has a year value and the usage value. So every type of assets are calculated in one out of this 11 method. So that's the way the issues are calculated. Um, right now, I will, I mean, before get into these calculations, let me explain um, what are, I mean, some of the jargons used in the asset management. Okay, so that's very important to understand this overall. So jargon in the sense, throughout the video I may be using some terms. Okay, It is very, very important to understand. I mean, if you are really a finance background or you know, corporate kind of background, you know these terms very well. But if you are pure a developer without knowing any finance background like me, I'm only developer. I don't know anything about. I do not know anything about accounts or finance. Okay, so that's the reason I did this study and I prepare this document before I go and write my code. Okay, so let's go to those jargons. Okay, um, in our application, right, the particular asset management module, we have a cost of asset. So whenever we purchase asset, we know that okay, I'm going and buying a car for 10 lakhs plus tax. Then what is the total gross price for that particular asset? Or if I'm going and buying on computer, and what is the cost, right? Or if you go and buy one power plant for the office or power backup thing, what is the cost? So that's the cost of asset. And the next one is the salvage value. Okay, let me tell you what is salvage value. Salvage is like for every asset after the end of the life, right? Assume you buy a furniture, or you buy, let's say you buy a car. After 10 years, you are going to either put the car to the exchange so that you will buy a new car, or you'll completely put that into the scrap, right? Maybe you'll put that into the scrap shop. They will take it for the kg of the iron rods or whatever material they can gather. So that's a salvage value, which means if you buy a furniture at end of the life, if you are just going and putting into the scrap shop, if they can pay like 100 rupees or 1000 rupees, that's called a salvage. Okay, I mean, most of the asset today after our usage we simply throw into the dump, which is salvage is basically zero, nothing. But usually offices will not do zero. Okay, when the end of the life, they will go and put it to the scrap, and the scrap, the person who is taking a scrap or exchange, right, there will be some value. That's called a salvage amount for any asset. So please note that every asset will have certain salvage value. um, how the companies fix the salvage value and all, it's up to the company. Usually any electronic item, the salvage value could be 5%, but in case of any vehicles like a car or motors, whatever you buy, maybe the salvage value could be 10 to 20%. So it will be vary category to category. Okay, when I say category, electronic is one set of asset, motor is another set of asset, something like that. Okay, furniture is other set of asset. And end of useful life in the sense, okay, if you are buying a car, maybe after 5 years you may think that this car is no more used, let's go and put that into the scrap or exchange. That's called end of useful life, which means after that the car may exit but nobody will drive the car because it's completely non-functional, or you lose the passions of driving the car. And the rate of depreciation, okay, that is a very key point. For example, now I buy the car for a 10 lakh. At end of the 10 year, I'm going and putting the car, I'm going to buy a new car so that I'm going to exchange. Maybe the car dealer may tell me that okay, I'll take the old car for 1 lakh rupees. Okay, the new car whatever I buy, they will only subtract the 1 lakh for the old car and they will give me the new car. So from today it is 10 lakh. After 10 year, the car become 1 lakh value, right? So the rate by which it is depreciating, right? So this year 10 lakh, maybe next year it is a 9 lakh or even 8 lakh. After the year, maybe the car can be sold only for 5 lakh. After 3 or 4 years, the car may be sold for 3 lakh, something like that. So the way it is, depreciating year on year, that's called the rate of depreciation. We'll definitely get into the programming part when we discuss. Okay, the depreciable um, cost. Okay, I took this some definition. So the depreciable cost is the cost of asset minus salvage value, which means if I buy a car today for 10 lakhs, after the year of car, if it goes only 1 lakh, then still I gain the 1 lakh from the actual 10 lakh. So the remaining 9 lakhs is actually a depreciable cost. When you minus the value, You can only minus from the 9 lakhs, not from the 10 lakhs, because anyway you will get the 1 lakh at end of the life. Okay, so that's called a depreciable cost. Hope this term is little useful. So if you are a finance background, sorry if I made any mistake, but as a programmer, you may understand these are all going to be simply a variable, right? Okay, now let's get into the little bit of the domain object part. So I always or usually use a Visual Code Studio in order to write whether Java or React JS. But because now I'm going to work on both the front end part as well as the back end part, I use Visual Code Studio for React JS like a front end component, and I use Eclipse for the back end, especially on the Java code. But mostly today we will be writing a Java code, not the front end part. Okay, so if I talk about the domain object, so domain object is nothing but a table, we all know, right? So if I go and connect to the MySQL from my local of this particular ERP, use select a star from assets, right? So TSC assets. So every asset has set of attribute in the database. So it's many, sorry, 44 attribute for every single asset. Like it's a name, ID and created at, updated at. These are all the default in this ERP. I mean, many columns are very default in this ERP because it's managing a large part of it. But other than that, the who is created at, what is the AMC ID, which branch, maybe a company with a multiple branch. When they buy the asset, they will put that into the branch, and the cost center, right? When you calculate the tax for the year or whatever, the cost center will give you under which um, entity or under which department or which unit we need to put this as a cost. For example, you have a company, the company operate at two different cities. You wanted to put two different city as a separate cost center. Say for example, this city I'm spending 10 lakh, I'm earning, let's say, 50 lakhs. That's a separate cost center. And another city of the same company running a separate branch, that's a separate cost center. Even though the company is same, the units are different, and what currencies calculate, this ERP can be used in different countries, so the currency is used as, I think we can leave this. So there are multiple attribute, but the primary part for us as a developer, we need to know that the salvage is basically double value, right? Because that if I put an integer, we can always put the round number, but if you put a salvage in a double, we can go the precision, like 1.5, something like that. Okay, so the database can hold the floating, the double or a float values. Okay, and the purchase cost also in a double, and salvage, depreciation, and rate. So other than that, there is a category ID also. um, so asset category in the sense, if I go and that's another table. Okay, select a star from asset. Okay, you see, um, sorry, asset categories are nothing but maybe I'll type the ID command name so you can understand it easily. So in this ERP, IDs are not number based. Usually if you look at any database like a MySQL or whatever the database, you will see all the IDs are basically integer based. But this particular application, if I put an integer, there is a limit in MySQL, right? If you put a long, there is a limit what the maximum number it can hold, right? But if I put the unique string, something like that, there is no limit. It is managing a huge data, so that's the reason we use a unique random string with the time millisecond kind of thing, so in order to maintain the ID. So these are all some background about the application, because before we get into the actual the depreciation calculation part, that's the core of this video. I'm just setting some context. So here they say, sorry about this typos. I mean, developer, right? We always type whatever the way we think, that's fine. So basically electronics, home appliances, and computers, blah blah, they have some category, but largely this is not a category. Largely if I put a category, we will say that electronics, furniture, and transport kind of thing. That's largely okay because we do the test. This is a UAT, I mean the developer machine, so we randomly type. Okay, so every assets is actually part of one of this um, asset category. Okay, so in the asset category, let's see asset category. Do we have any salvage? So here the the issue is that the asset category is so say if I take electronics will always give a, let's assume 5% as a salvage rate. Furniture will always give a 20% as a salvage rate, just for an assumption. Okay, so at a category level there will be a salvage. So all electronic, it's a 5% salvage value. However, if you buy a mouse, let's say 1,000 mouse for the particular company, at the end of the day mouse may not be may not be um, may not go some resale value, correct? You'll completely put that into the scrap. So when you add the mouse, the computer mouse, okay, under the electronic, then it will derive that okay, it has a 5% salvage value. However, when we go and look at in the asset itself, there will be a salvage. So when you add, it will put a 5% of the purchase cost. However, you can go and change it to a 0 for the particular mouse alone, but for a server and all you can keep the 5%. So that's the reason the first thing you need to look at the asset salvage, because asset category salvage is just overall percentage of all the category of asset. Okay, so these are all the value. I mean, in principle we know that what is the purchased cost and what is the salvage. So based on that, and definitely we might be having the start date, which means the date by which the particular uh, item put in use. Okay, a certain thing, you buy a car, whether you use it or not, there will be depreciation, right? So the database could be entered at the created at time. Okay, you will have a created at column here, but however we will always have a like the start at, I mean the day by which it has been started. Okay, we also have a expiry date. For example, if you buy something, it I don't have immediate example. You might buy something but it has some expiry date, you can enter, because as you enter it will calculate the from the expiry date to the purchase date as a overall lifetime of the particular asset. Okay, so by this detail, let's go and let's start write the code and then we can discuss wherever it is required. Okay, so can we start with the the first one called the straight line depreciation method. Okay, so before that, can you just go and do a little bit on the Spring Boot. Okay, so as I told you, whatever the database you saw now, right? We can just open the same here. If you want to see the asset is table is like this. Okay, we set some unique constraint and duplicate everything. You see whatever the column in the MySQL database is actually created based on the Spring Boot domain object. Okay, so any column we introduce, we can just introduce here, that the Spring Boot will automatically go and reserve the column in the MySQL, right? So that's a MySQL part of, I mean the Spring Boot part of it. So let's go and open the service part. Okay, here we have a asset management service part. This service part is primarily for saving, updating, that kind of calculation. This is already 246 lines. I really don't want to go and create one more, I mean add a few lines of code here. So better, I think I wanted to add let's say a new service class to write these calculations. But we can write it in the utility class also, but in the future I wanted to really push this particular part, like the depreciation calculation part alone, as a repository in the Maven, so that the developer can straight away pull and use this calculation rather than rewriting. Okay, so that we'll discuss separately. For now I'll just save it, and here let's say asset management or asset depreciation. Sorry, this is too smaller for you. asset depreciation um, method service. Okay, it could be just it's just a name. I'm typing a name of the particular class file. I'm creating a new class file. So it is Java requirement. I think Java developer knows that the file name and the class name must be the same, otherwise Java will throw error. Okay, some of the repositories are not really necessary here. I will remove them, but anyway, for the context of video it is not necessary. So what we can do is we can just go ahead and remove all the existing method, and we can just focus on what we need to write here. Okay, so why I'm getting error? Okay, so this is the basic code. These are all the repository we imported. Okay, this is not going to be used, but when it required I can tell you why I'm using that one. Okay, so I'm not using the git autopilot. So autopilot will definitely write you some code automatically, but this is a kind of video, so I'm going to um, write the equation at this point. Okay, so the straight line method. Okay, what we can do, let's go here. I'm sorry. So let it be like just to begin with, void you all know nothing to return, and this is the method. We are saying that I'm going to write a straight line method, right? Yeah, we can keep the document name as is, so that it is easy for the other developer who is pulling the code. They can easily understand. Okay, so in order to do the straight line method, right, what we need to do, let's go and read. So if you really find any error in this particular statement, because this are all I something gathered from the Google, some books and all, in order to calculate how to work out the depreciation. Okay, so if you find any wrong in this calculation, please let me know. So the straight line method is very simple to calculate. Okay, it is saying the annual depreciation expense equal to the cost of the asset and the salvage value slash useful life of an asset, where, so they just explained. Okay, here what we need to, okay, we need only this three thing, right? I will add anyway the comment, or I will add this. Okay, I will explain later the detail of it. What do we do? Description. Okay, so I'll leave that for now. So let's not get into that. For now, what we need, the annual depreciation expense. Okay, so how do we calculate? It says that annual depreciation expense equal to, okay, we can just type the same way. Okay, let's do double annual depreciation. See, please note that if you are a developer, you may type something like ADXY or something, XY whatever. It's absolutely fine logically, but whenever you write a code, make sure, or I mean, I wanted to make sure the variables are more meaningful, so that when somebody else take this code and they do some further improvement, they can easily correlate what this particular program talks about. So the annual depreciation expense is equal to cost of asset and the salvage value slash useful of life. Okay, so this is what the equation says. Here what we need to pass the particular asset. Okay, I'm going to calculate one of the asset current value using the calculation, right? So for that I have to send the asset domain object that we already discussed, right? The asset is, this is the domain object, the particular values are already in the database. Okay, so when I pass the asset, from the asset we have the cost of asset, right? Dot get the purchased cost, correct? We already purchased, we know the purchase cost, minus what else we can do, the salvage value. We all know the asset by itself as a salvage value. Okay, get salvage. Okay, then useful life. So this is really tricky in order to calculate. Okay, how do we calculate? um so why it is throwing error? Okay, okay, so the useful life of asset, if you look at the asset, okay, they have something like the date of purchase we know, and so the purchase that is there, end at so if I buy the I mean if I bought the asset, we have the purchase date, useful life of asset. How do we calculate? Um, so for every asset, we need to know how long or how many year it can be used, correct? So let's find out. There is a expiry, okay? They say, I mean, when I purchase any asset, I will enter when the particular asset will expire. Okay, if it is a car, let's say 9 year or 10 year, something like that, whatever, I need to enter the expiry date in order to calculate the asset value, right? Otherwise, assume that one of the asset going to work for another 100 year, it is very difficult to calculate it. Okay, so now assume, so usually every asset calculated based on the number of years, not really by days. Okay, what we can do is dot get dot get time. This is the millisecond of the particular time minus the purchase at millisecond time. Okay, so new date in which we are from the expiry date millisecond to the purchase date millisecond, we will get one particular millisecond value. From there, I mean, if I put that, it will get the time. Okay, I think. Okay, but this will give. No, I'm sorry. Um, what we need to do is that let's say double. Okay. Use, or I would say useful. Okay, useful life asset in ms. Okay, that's how many milliseconds the particular asset is useful. Whether the first line, I'll minimize this. Oh, it is throwing error. Okay, this is long. Okay, it's a long, not a date value. Okay, so I get the millisecond, right? So from the millisecond, how do we get the useful asset in double? Okay, so slash how many millis in year, correct? So we need to calculate. Okay, we can copy paste this at partially to, we can, okay, but it's throwing error. In other way we can easily calculate. So let's say we'll go like this: per day how many millis. So it says like this. I mean, in order to calculate in other way, how many millis in a minute. Okay, in a minute it will be, so 60 second is a minute, and 60,000, every minute has 1,000 milliseconds. Okay, in order to easily calculate, what I can do here is, okay, it is a 365 days into 24 hours. 365 into 24 is actually 1 year, right? Into in per hour we have 60 minute, right? Then enter this. So this is what per year millisecond. Okay, So if I put that, I will get the same, the initial one we calculated, right? Per year, how many millisecond, we will get the same one, okay? So this one we get it, right? If you go and put it like this, we'll get the same value. So, I mean, it gives the, like a number. So 365 days, 24 hours, 1 hour, I mean, every hour is 60 seconds. Every second we have 60,000 milliseconds, okay? So now we got the, this is not a double, this is again long, okay? But in order to do that, we can just convert. So we need how many year, right? So we calculated the time. So instead of, so double is not wrong, right? So the long we are dividing by thing, okay, it cannot be double, okay, fine, okay. So we got it, right? Now we know the useful life of asset by year. This is actually by year, this is by millisecond, okay. So in order, because this is a long equation, I wanted to write as two separate variable. Please note that this equation alone takes a long time, but don't worry, the other equations are pretty easy because it is going to reuse, okay. Now how do we calculate the value? The purchased cost minus salvage value, then useful of life. Assume the asset is used for 2 years, then we'll get the 2 year as a value. But why this is getting error? No, it is not a problem. Say asset purchased cost is asset purchased cost minus asset salvage. I'm sure I don't see any wrong with this equation. Okay, semicolon is missing. Okay, this is double, right? Okay, this is again double. The left hand side of assignment must be a variable. Of course, it is variable. Um, I'm not really sure what is that. The left side of the assignment variable must be variable. Invalid character. Okay, is there anything wrong? Oh, okay. Sorry. The problem is that when we copy paste this from the Google Doc, this is like a n dash. They, people call it as a n dash. It's not really a subtract minus symbol. Okay, sorry about that. So the copy paste really troubled us. Okay, so this is the annual depreciation expense, correct? Which means every year the asset is um, depreciated like this. Okay, so every year we need to minus the value um, based on this particular equation. So now what we need to do, so this is a 1 year depreciation expense of this particular asset, right? So um, now we need to find out this asset is purchased so and so year, and what is the current expense, correct? So how do we find out? This is a per year, right? So let's go and find the same equation again. Okay, um, so can we use this one? I don't know how many times the same annual depreciation expense will be used. So the other places also they use the same equation, right? So can we use this as then a separate utility method, because we will reuse it. Okay, so this is the annual depreciation method, right? Sorry. So this is the annual depreciation expense. Okay, if I pass the asset, then it is now returning as a double value, correct? A double value, which is the annual depreciation of, I mean, for the particular asset, whatever it is returning, okay, after the calculate it will return what is the per year um, depreciated cost, okay. Annual depreciation, instead of expense we'll put a cost, okay. Okay, now if I pass this, okay, let's say double annual depreciation cost, okay, it is there. If I pass to this method of this asset, I will get the 1 year depreciation cost into this variable, correct. Now in order to actually calculate what is the actual value of today, what do we do? Instead of expiry at, let's calculate the current time. New date dot get time, this will return the current millisecond, the time you are calculating now, minus purchased at, right. Assume that the car, it is a 10-year age, I purchased 3 years ago. In this like um, usage in millis, okay, how long it is in usage, okay. Here instead of millis I can type millis, okay, because the variable will be easily to, instead of ms it will be easy. So the total usage of this particular item, correct. Now we can, I think we can remove this. So what is the current asset value? So we have, so okay, the simple reason is that, I mean the calculation should be the purchased cost minus um, the annual depreciation cost, and we need to find out, here it is in millis, we need to find out in year, correct. The currently we have in a millisecond, okay. Let's go and double usage in year, okay. New date, okay, this is not, again we cannot calculate this. How to calculate the asset, this one, correct. So from the millis to year, this is a calculation, correct. Can we write this as a, this as a one of the utility function, okay. So what exactly this is going to be? A double, correct. So it has to return a double value. What we need to do, find year from millis, that's a function, correct. Okay, so what are we going to return? Millis, correct. Sorry, long millis. If I send a millis, it will give return in years, correct. Why this is okay, this is in long, right? No, no, obviously no. Millis slash this, what is the error? Oh, cannot convert from long to double, okay. How come? The millis, when I divide, okay, it can be definitely double, not a long, okay. Here what we can do, we can say double, all right. Okay, then what we can do, double dot value of, then do this, okay. Then we'll definitely get into double calculation, okay. So we are sending the millis. In this, if we divide that, so we have to divide, right? Yeah, if I divide that, we'll get the actual year, okay. So what we can do here, so when you write the code, we are refactoring, correct. So copy this, I can put it here, right. If I pass this to this method, anyway the value is hard coded there. Now we will get it from the, from millis, we send the millisecond, we get the number of years. Why we get the long here? No, it is a double, right. Okay, this is perfect. Here we will get a double, so we get this one, and we use the same method to calculate how many years this one, this particular asset is in use. So usage in millis, past, then we'll get the usage in years. Then almost we come to the end of the first equation. Don't worry, the second equations and all we are going to simply reuse. Okay, so the asset purchase cost minus the annual depreciation cost multiplied by the usage in years. Correct? Assume this is used in last 3 years. Then we derive at a, we need to put a bracket. I mean, 1 minute. So it's a double current value. Okay, purchased cost minus per year depreciable cost. Assume per year the car depreciation is 1 lakh. So the car is used in 2 years. Correct? Okay, yes. We minus this. Okay, the current value of the car is this one. Correct? Now what we can do in the same asset, because see, this is the asset is a mutable object according to the program. So if I set the dot set current cost, we can set this value. So we are not, I mean, we are not involving any database function here because this is a utility class. I'm sending the asset from the database, whatever the method. This is simply a service class where I'm doing only the, I won't call this as a really service class because this is not going to involve any database right now. Mostly this is a utility class. So it's just calculating and setting the value back. Plus we have, I mean, according to the database, I have one more column like the depreciation at something like that. So I mean, which means when the calculation done at a loss. Okay, because this is not something we are going to calculate every day, right? Set the depreciation at okay, this is something like we can set a new date. It will simply apply the current time. Okay, so now whatever the method, somebody is going to call this method with the current asset and we are going to calculate the current asset value. Okay, however, which asset, which method to be applied should be applied in other method once we write all the depreciation calculation. So assume that we have done one particular method but which yield other few utility methods. Okay, now assume that we have done one equation. Let's get into the another equation. So the double declining balance method, right? So can we simply copy this? Okay, and it is like double declining method, and let's understand the equation. Declining balance method. So I mean, they say annual depreciation expense equal to 2 times of cost of an asset minus salvage value plus value of the asset. So whatever the value we are receiving, we need to just multiply by 2. That's it. Okay, so what we can do here, so do we need to rewrite the whole thing? No, not necessary. Correct? What we can do, just call the, okay, I'll put this into the comment section. I told you always comment is very important for the other developers going to refactor. Okay, what we can do in the double declining, we'll simply call this method inside of this method. Okay, and pass the asset. Now the asset has been sent. So now what happens? The asset sent to this method, all the calculation of method is done. We receive the value. Only we need to say 2 times of whatever the calculation we done so far. Correct? So what we can do, we can simply double. Okay, we'll say that okay, I think it won't work because here from the current value we already calculated the current value, we set the value. Nowhere we are saving the actual annual depreciation expense. We are not saving into the DB. Sorry, we are not saving the cost of an asset salvage use. Okay, I think we cannot call this, I believe. Let's copy this. Okay, let's copy this. What it says, 2 times of, here the current value is, no sorry, cost of an asset minus salvage. So whatever we get, we just simply multiply by 2, right? Annual depreciation expense, because here we already calculated. Okay, so what we need to do, current value equal to 2 into, correct? So why then we are saying we cannot use the existing method? It says cost of an asset. Where is the cost of an asset? It is here, correct? Purchased cost and the salvage value. Okay, so then did we miss the salvage value completely in the previous section? I think yes. Okay, okay, let's go here. Cost, I mean, yeah, I think we missed it. The cost of asset minus salvage value slash useful of life. Okay, here the purchase cost, it's a cost of asset. We completely missed the salvage amount. Yeah, because this is a useful life, correct? So that is per year cost into the current, the usage year is what we get the useful year cost. Okay, but we don't have a salvage here, correct? What we can do, let's go under dot get the salvage. So salvage, what we need to do, let's group them first, correct? So in terms of equation, let's group these two things, which means from the cost of asset minus salvage value, that's a depreciable cost, correct? Minus, okay, divide this value, you got it? So this is the actual current value, correct? This is a depreciable value, correct? So from the purchase cost, if you minus the, subtract the salvage cost, that's a depreciable cost. So from the depreciable cost only we are dividing the useful number of assets. So then we become the current value. Okay, let's use the same equation. That's the reason I'm trying to reuse the same method, but unfortunately I could not, because this equation says I need to simply multiply by 2. Okay, if I think I can use the, so if we really see whether we can find the, this is the annual depreciation expense.
By just multiplying the last current value into 2 means it will get the double declining method value.
Correct, correct. So the annual depreciation cost, current year cost, use 2 into purchase cost and asset salvage. Okay, I'm trying to only reuse the code, but this is okay, we can keep it separate. But if you wanted to really minimize, instead of these 3 lines of code, we can write it separately. Okay, if we really write separate, what do we really get? We get useful of life, annual depreciation expense. No, I mean, trying to split this equation, we cannot get any value because we cannot set that into the asset. This is okay. Okay, so in the future we need to see why we need to write a duplicate line of three lines, whether we can calculate this as a separate thing. So annual asset depreciation, already we got the annual asset depreciation here. Okay, this is fine. Anyway, we are using another method. Okay, this is cool. So now we done the double declining method. Okay, we'll do the next one. The next one is diminishing balance method. So this is going to be really little complicated. So let's understand this equation. So the depreciation expense equal to book value of asset at the beginning of the year into rate of the depreciation slash 100. Correct. So now how do we implement this? Say it says the annual depreciation expense, which means this is the per year, correct? So I think what I can tell you, in many cases these three lines are going to be kind of little duplicate. Okay, so what I can advise is, see whether we can create a method of, okay, method of let's see whether we can reuse. Okay, annual depreciation expense. Do we have this? Oh, it is already there, right? Sorry, we already written on the top, correct? Okay, let's focus on this particular double declining. Sorry, we should have created another one, right? Okay, I'll just copy paste this one. So this time what we're going to do is diminishing balance method. So it's a diminishing balance method. So we are again receiving the asset for this particular type of asset. The depreciation expense. So here they say if this is the annual depreciation expense, this is the depreciation, this is again annual depreciation expense. So from there we calculate from the purchase year to current year in order to get the current value of the asset. Okay, but in this case, in this particular case, the depreciation expense, the depreciation expense is, okay, again it is also showing the year on year. Okay, so depreciation, diminishing balance. Okay, let's go with this. Book value of asset at the beginning of the year. Okay, assume we calculate now. The first year the car value is 10 lakhs, correct? The next year the car value may be 8.5 lakhs. So we need to take the current value of the asset and then do the rate of see, do we have the rate of, so the rate of see, the rate of depreciation is already, it is not an equation, it is somebody just entering the data into the asset. Okay, so then what we need to do, if somebody applying as diminishing balance method to one of the asset, we need to ask to enter the rate of depreciation also. Okay, so can you check whether the asset has a rate of depreciation? Okay, sorry, I'm not asset. Okay, can you check rate? Yeah, depreciation rate is there already. Okay, because based on all this only I created that particular domain object. So if I go here, what do we need to do? I mean, let's copy this. Okay, in order to ease out.
That is
okay, good. This one, paste this. Okay, so here depreciation expense is equal to,
but we don't want that usage in this.
okay, hold on, I'll try to do that. As you write we can see. Okay, I may be wrong. So the depreciation, we'll try to find out what is the depreciation expense. That's a goal. The book of the asset at the beginning of the year. So here we should not look at the purchase year. Purchase, we can look at the purchase at, but if you take the purchase rate, if you calculate the first time, taking a purchase rate is fine. But if you are looking at the third year, you should not take the purchase rate, because this equation says book value of the asset at the beginning of the year, which means you are buying a car at 2023. Then the car value is at 10 lakhs. So you are taking 10 lakhs as the book value of the asset beginning. But when you take a 2024, 10 lakh is not a value where it is already depreciated. So you have to take the depreciated value. Okay. So now here, yeah, exactly. The current cost. We need to take the current cost. Okay. So take the asset, asset dot get depreciated. No, here depreciated cost. That, sorry, current value, correct? So I told you, right, the current cost is different from the purchase cost. Purchase cost is something you paid at the time of purchase, but current is every year it is depreciating, then the current value is calculated. So the asset current cost minus rate of depreciation, the sense we have a rate of depreciation, right? Depreciation rate, depreciation rate, right? So assume somebody entered, I mean, from the UI, how are we entering? Depreciation rate equal to, will they type something like 40%? Do we have the UI something like that? So we have to make a note that the depreciation rate must be in the percentage. Okay. So when we say percentage, if they enter like a 40 or something like that, we need to type 40% or something like that. That's the way it is shown here. Okay. Rate of depreciation slash. Okay, I think. But when we calculate here, no, they've given some example, right? I copy paste this from the screenshot. They say this is assume that you purchase the vehicle for 5,000. The rate of the so salvage. See again here, it's not talking about a salvage. See in this description, okay, it is not okay. So every item will have a certain salvage. Here they are not calculating the salvage. In this equation it is there, but unfortunately here they don't mention the salvage. Okay, so if I really go on the search, definitely the salvage will be there, because that's way they illustrate it. Okay, so the purchase cost minus salvage 40%, then they say 1600 is what is a depreciation expense, that's called actually depreciated. Okay, so 4000 of 40% is 1600, correct? Okay, so can we translate this now? How do we do? So if I go into the code, let's first find out. Okay, what do we get? Double depreciable cost. Okay, depreciable cost is what? The purchase cost minus salvage is a depreciable cost, correct? Okay, let's, I mean, to use out the equation, I'm simplifying in few extra lines. That's a good thing always. Okay, so it's a depreciable cost. Even in the other equation we written here, right? So here and all, if you really wanted to, add something like this, you can always add here and you can put it here. I mean, always we should write a very shorter length of code. We should not write too long. That's a good thing. I mean, nothing wrong in it. It's a good thing. So the depreciable cost slash, you got it right. So anyway, that's the idea. I'll leave it. I'll validate later. Okay, we got a depreciable cost according to this screenshot. From the depreciable cost, we need to put the percentage, correct? So here we are asking them to enter the depreciation rate. Okay, assume in the UI they are entering 40, in the sense it's a 40%. If they're entering like a 20, that's called a 20%. So we need to take it as a 20, or in the UI we need to show something like a text box. Okay, so I mean, if you go here, where are we entering? Like okay, like a new asset, right? Here are we entering the depreciable cost?
Depreciation.
Okay, so here this is the depreciation at or something. What I need to do, we need to put a percentage as some display here, so that user knows, okay, I have to enter 40, the sense 40% I'm entering. Okay, so if they enter, what gonna happen? So usually in the school mark, how do we calculate? If I get a 70 or 80 out of 100, we say 80%, which means 8 slash, yeah, divided by 100 into okay, that's fine. So sorry, 1 minute. The depreciable cost according to this equation enter, if the people are entering 40, okay, which means 40%, right? How will you calculate 40%?
40 divided by 100.
Into 100, correct? Is this 40%?
That also divides.
No, I think this looks okay. Let me figure it out. So, I'm sorry, let's open an Excel file, okay. Say, assume someone score 90% out of 100, okay. We say it's a 1.9. If you multiply 100, then what you get? Oh, okay, sorry, it's a 90. So then how the calculation they mentioned here in the sheet? So we need to?
Yes, 4,000.
No, we need to simply put a part 40%, say here, if I go here, in other way, okay, whatever the calculation they shown here, right? Say for 4,000, 40% is 1,600, right? Can you put the same equation? It is 4,000 rupees. Okay. If I put the same, whatever the I think into is in other way around, correct? So so what we need to do is we need to reduce 40%, correct? Or sorry, we need to get the 40% of the value. Currently it is giving a 9. So how do we do 40? I mean, usually how will you do?
40 divided by 100.
So we will do the value into 40 divided by 100, right? You got it? No, don't look at here. Look at here. So 40%, how do we calculate? From the value, we get the depreciable amount divided by into, we need to multiply. Okay. So if I go to the code, what do? We get the depreciable cost, which means the purchase cost minus salvage into the depreciation rate divided by 100. That's it. We don't need this 100. That's wrong. I'm sorry. That's a blunt mistake. Okay. What is this value we get out of this? I do some bracket additionally. That's okay. That is to make the code very neat. Here, this is the depreciation expense of the year. What we get here? We'll get actually 1,600. Correct?
Here. For total year.
We'll get the 1,600 here, right? So I mean, there is a real challenge in this particular part, because when I run this the year 1, it takes the purchase cost minus salvage cost, then that is called a depreciable cost, and then it does the calculation of depreciation of the year is 40%, or whatever the percent they enter, then we are getting the remaining, the balance. Now what is the actual current value? The current value is depreciable cost minus depreciation expense, correct? The depreciable cost is the actual cost, right? From the purchase cost minus salvage minus depreciation expense. This is the expense of the current year. Again, I'm saying just one particular year. When it happened recurring year on year, we are not coming to that particular calculation. That's wrong, but we'll come back. So minus depreciable cost. This is the first year current value. Okay, until then we find out only the first year value. So I will cut this little bit. Okay, so because it is going to go some iterative process, okay, because this method we may rename it. So what we are giving here is we are sending an asset, it is taking depreciable cost and the depreciation expense, that is from the depreciable cost equal into the rate of percentage, it is getting the current value. Okay, now the current value is saved into the current cost, right? Okay, so hold on a minute. Assume now first we need to find out the loop. When it was purchased, what is the current year? Okay, just for the sake of thing, okay, let's calculate this two line first. Okay, we need to go by some loop inside. Okay, so this is current time minus purchased time. Then we get the millis, correct? How many milliseconds? This is currently in use, correct? Then from the millisecond we are getting the usage in years, correct? Okay, now assume it will say that 2.5 year or 2.6 year or 3.8 year something, because we are going to always calculate by round of the year, I mean once in a year, right? Can you do math dot round? When you do the round, assume you are calculating in the year of, I mean around 3.8, it will calculate as a 4 years. If you do something like this, it will only calculate 3 years, that's okay. All right, so now here it will not be it not will double, yeah, it will be basically int. Okay, just number of year. So why it is throwing error? Because they are passing double to the, so cannot, so because this is actually returning double, right? When we receive the double, from the double we are converting into int. Okay, so anyway, instead of writing multiple uh, stuff, let's write this. Okay, integer. Yeah, I really don't know, right? So yeah, math.round will always give a integer only. Okay, or in that round, oh, it will give a, oh, it also says long. I mean, I have no, I'm not against a long. Long is okay, because no asset going to work for a long number. Okay, so in Java, integer has some limit. Okay, let's say Java int versus long. If you look at it, integer can be up to this number. Okay, long up to this number. No resource or nothing going to exist this year until somebody put into the amber. Okay, so anyway, that's fine. Okay, that's absolutely okay. So number of years, this is in round. Okay, not in decimal, this is in round. Okay, so now how do we calculate? Because this is a diminishing, every year we should take from the, what, from the current asset value, not from the purchased value. That's what it says, correct? Yes. Do you remember? Here it says we have to take the current. We must minus current value. Here you see the second year they do the same minus here, like 5,000 minus 600, they minus here. Here why they are again minusing 960? Because they still further reduce. Okay, if I do that in simple term, what I'll do, for, okay, int I equal to 0, I less than years in use. Okay, I plus plus, sorry about that, enter it. So now we know how many years we need to calculate. Okay, so assume I'm just copying this. We no need to put the depreciated at in every loop. Okay, because it is just once. Okay, assume the first year it is coming, it is taking the purchase cost. Okay, sometime we may write like if I equal to, I'm just writing some what is that, some pseudo code. If I equal to 0, take a purchase cost, else if it is a subsequent year, do not take the purchase cost, rather take the current value of the year. Okay, so instead of that, okay, instead of that going if and loop and all, what I'll do, I will, as soon as the new asset, when the new asset being called, what I'll do, I'll set the current cost equal to purchased cost. Assume whenever you call, assume you call at the first year or you call at the 10th year, doesn't matter. This is logically okay. Sometimes people may get confused. That's still not a big deal. Okay. So what I'll do, set the current cost equal to asset the purchase cost. Okay. And here instead of taking the purchase cost, let's use the current cost. I'll explain why. Okay. Current cost. Okay. Assume. So it's the same UI, going to call maybe even first year 10 time you will call, second year you can call 50. I mean, whoever the manager, they come and calculate the asset, it will keep on calling the same method for the same asset, right? So whenever you call, it comes with the asset. The asset will have a purchase cost which will never vary, correct? When you enter into the system, whatever the purchase cost, that will never be changed. So the purchase cost I assign into the current cost. Assume the first year or the day it was purchase cost is the current cost, right? As soon as you buy, I mean, in the real world, if you buy the car, then immediately you sell, or you buy a gold, if you immediately sell, there will be some deduction, but leave it that aside. So here what you see, as soon as it comes, the current cost is a purchase cost. Then it get into the loop where from the purchase, what is the current year? Assume you are running the day one of the purchase. What happens? Here, it will go the loop, the math round will return a 0, correct? When it return a 0, it will not get into this loop, correct? Then directly what the actual cost? The current cost is a purchase cost because you are looking at the day one or even in a month, because all the calculation we are doing only by years, because in any company the asset is actually calculated only based for a tax benefit. Okay, for example, you go and you have to pay tax to the tax for your for your company, right? So assume that your tax is 5 crore. You need to pay 5 crore. You don't need to pay 5 crore. I mean, based on what I know the tax, okay? What you can do, you can go and run this report, the asset depreciation report. Last year, your company asset value was, let's say, 30 crore. Okay? This year, okay, the the same asset, leave the newly purchased asset. Okay, whatever the asset you used the last year, you are using the same asset also this year, but the asset value is depreciated, correct? Because you are using the asset because you run the business, right? You buy the car in order to do the cab business. The you at the end of the year you are paying a tax, right? But whatever your asset is depreciated because the car is running kilometer after kilometer, it is getting depreciated, right? So if your value of the asset is 30 lakhs for the last year or 30 crore, this year assume that there is a 20% depreciation rate. That 20% of the 30 crore you can minus from your tax, because the asset is actually depreciated to do the work. You do the work because you want to earn. You earned, because you earned, you have to pay tax. Okay. All right. So now the current cost is purchased cost of the beginning of the year. However, after the first year, the loop will come. The first loop will take the current cost and it will minus the salvage value. Then we know the here there is a problem. Every loop, every year we should not calculate the salvage value, because the salvage value should happen only once. Okay, so here instead of taking the current cost, okay, leave the, I mean, we can minus the salvage value in the beginning itself. So
No, sir, they are minusing for each year.
no, I'm not putting inside a loop. I'm putting outside of the loop, which means at the first time from the purchase cost to from the purchase cost, I reduce the salvage cost, which is actually depreciable rate, depreciable cost, okay, of the asset. So that's what I'm saying. If you buy a car, even immediately after the day you just go and sell, there will be depreciation. That's called a salvage. Assume that. Okay. So that is the current cost. If you come here, the actual depreciable cost is the current cost of the year according to the loop, because we are running multiple times. So the current cost is the depreciable cost, because we initially you need to reduce the salvage only once. Not every year you cannot do the salvage. Salvage will happen only once for any asset. Okay. So if I remove
for a salvage for every year, salvage minusing for every year they are doing.
yeah, see, you purchase the asset, right? At a purchase cost. Every asset will have a salvage value, even it is a zero. Don't worry. So zero, it's fine. So salvage you are minusing. Assume that you assume at the end of the life the salvage is 1 lakh, which means you are reducing the 1 lakh from a 10 lakh. That the remaining 9 lakhs is the actual, that 9 lakh only you need to calculate. You should never calculate the salvage, because the salvage amount you will get it one day. Okay, so now the depreciable cost is actually a current cost of the first year, and it does the depreciable cost into asset depreciation rate. Asset depreciation rate will not change year on year. It's the same percentage. We calculate, we get the depreciation expense amount. From the depreciable cost, we are reducing the depreciable amount for the year, and we are putting that into the current. Again, it is going to the same loop, and getting iteratively it is reducing year on year. Then finally we will get the, let's say if it is a 3 year, it will calculate a 3 year, we will get the final depreciation rate. I'm sorry about that. Okay, so the depreciation rate is calculated, and this is done. So we need a log. I mean, when we deal with a database, we will deal the log, because whenever we calculate for every year, we need to put what is the actual depreciation from the last year to current year, in order to submit for a government taxing related thing. Okay, for now, I mean, we are only focusing on the equation part, not on the tax part. Tax part we will anyway come. Okay, now, so can we go on to the next? So what is the next one? Correct. They are okay. So your question is that they are reducing the salvage year on year. I agree. They are reducing because they maintain the purchase cost always, and they are accumulating the year on year. See here, this is a first year reduction 1500.
But we are
here reducing.
using the depreciation cost per year and year, and we are calculating the.
We are putting a, because in the variable I cannot go in. I mean, we don't. That's what I'm saying. We don't have a log to record. Okay, first year 1600, second year 960. We are not recording. We are putting directly into the actual current cost. So that's what I am minusing the salvage only once, because the second year onwards I'm only taking the current cost, not the purchase cost. So I'm changing a different equation. I mean, I'm using the same equation but a different logic. Okay, now let's finish this. I mean, start this. Sum of years digit method. Okay, can we understand this? Okay, because I copy pasted this different times. Okay, the depreciation expense, again depreciable cost, we know, right? Do we have a method called depreciable cost? Did we write that?
No.
Okay, we can write, it's just one line, right? Okay, because we'll use it. Depreciable cost. Okay, we need, of course, we need to return, right? So we have, no, we written this method, I guess. This one. Oh, we removed because the equation has been changed. Okay, the depreciable cost equal to asset dot get purchase cost minus asset dot salvage dot salvage. This is a depreciable cost. Simply return it. You can simply put a return here also, because there is no point of saving that into the separate variable, but just for a reading purpose this would be useful. But definitely this 2 line is not redundant. 1 line is enough. Okay, so here, okay, let's go here. So we know the depreciation cost into remaining life of, into remaining useful life of asset. That is how many more years this asset will be useful, and sum of years digit, that we don't know what it is. Let's understand that. So the sum of years method uses the expected life and add the digit for the every year to give the final depreciation amount. Okay, say the useful of asset is 5 year. Assume that if I buy a car, I will use for 10 year. The sum of the year is obtained adding up years digit as like the series, like, so it is just reducing one from every number, okay, but it is finally calculating that number, I mean summarizing all the number. So every digit is divided by this total. Every digit is then divided by this total to get the percentage of the depreciation for the every year. So I got too much confusion, but this illustration may help. Okay, assume the year 1 amount to be depreciated, whatever. Okay, this particular 4.1 million or whatever. Okay, the depreciation factor is this one, and the depreciation expense is this. So how do they calculate? Are they multiplying or something like what we did now? Maybe we'll take the smallest. Okay, here what they do, is 3 lakhs some amount, some number. Okay, this is not really clear. The depreciation expense equal to depreciable cost, that is 100% clear. The remaining useful life, so the remaining useful life slash sum of the digits. Okay, I think I understood. Okay, let's say in the first year, we know the depreciable cost, correct? And we know the remaining useful life of the asset. It's a loop. For example, we know that um, the current year and the expiry date. Okay, no, not necessary to worry about expiry date. Yeah, okay. So we know. So far what we are calculating how many years we used the product or asset. In this equation, we are going to say how many more year it is going to be used. I mean the futuristic. Okay, slash sum of the years digit.
From the purchase till which
Yeah,
we are using must calculate the
correct.
sum of it.
Okay, so let's calculate this. Okay, I'll try to write, but we will anyway do the test case and we will validate. All right. So
But the depreciation factor, how they are calculating?
Which one?
Depreciation factor, but they are not giving the.
Yeah, so because I copied this from various sources, because the way they explain every equation it's vary. I copy from a different sources, but we will put this number and see. I'll use this for a test case. After we complete this code, we'll write a test case. When the test case, if we enter this and I agree. This factor they I don't know how they brought in, maybe 33% or something. But we'll put that into the test case. We will see the result is matching like this. Okay. For now we'll write. Okay. So sum of years of method. So void.
Double.
Now let's look at sum of years digit method. Okay. Void sum of years digit method and use the same method of asset. So now the first thing what we need to find out, we need to find out the depreciable cost. Okay, so in order to use that, I will use this particular one. I'm calling the depreciable cost. I'm using the same method. Okay, I'm just instead of copy paste, I just brought them here. Okay, so now we know the depreciable cost according to, so this equation we know the remaining useful life of asset. So let's find out what is the remaining useful asset. Okay, remaining useful is in the maybe we need to find out in the year, right? So we use the same thing. Okay, but here remaining use, remaining use in millis, then how will you calculate the current time mine no, no, not the current time, the asset dot get expiry, because without expiry you will not know when the product will get expire, right? So expiry at, so which means whenever you enter the asset we need to ask when this will expire. So the expiry date should be there. At least for certain method, the expiry date is important. Or if they enter, let's say this will useful for next 10 years, then from the current date we need to plan for next 10 years and put the expiry date. So expiry date should be there in the database. That's the assumption. So we need to make sure the UI is supporting to that. So the remaining usage in millis is the asset expiry at minus new date dot get time. So now we got the expiry at, okay, we need to get not the date, we need to get the millisecond, right? Millisecond we'll get, come on, it is auto complete something. Okay, now we get the millis. From the millis usage in years, instead we'll put copy usage in years, correct? The year, if we round up this millis, I mean if we divide the milli by milliseconds of the year, we'll get the remaining years, correct? We'll remove this. Find the year from milli. Yeah, if I send a millisecond, it will tell you how many years in this millisecond. Okay, that's fine. So find the year from millis, that's fine. We are sending the millis, I mean from the expiry date, I am minusing the current date, so that we know how many more year this particular asset will work for us. Okay, so now what is the equation? Into sum of the years of the digit. How we need to calculate? Something like this. Okay, so this is the round number, right? So how will we calculate? So there are some easiest method, but we'll write a very simple code so that user can understand. Let's use the same for loop. Okay, all right. So remaining, it's not a useful, I mean past year, it's a remaining year. Okay, so how do we calculate? We'll calculate what we need to really calculate, sum of years of digit, correct? Remaining useful year, we know the sum of useful year digit. Okay, so here what we can do, int sum of years digit equal to, usually start with a 0 because it's a summation, 0 is allowed, you keep the 0. Okay, here what you do, so the remaining years, okay, I'll do this way, I from 1 to 1 less than or equal to. If you really wanted to use the same method, what I'll do, I equal to remaining years. So if you really need to know, you can copy paste this method. Okay, okay, what we do, I equal to remaining years, I is greater than 0, we no need to add a 0, 1 up to 1 it's fine, and I should be minus. This is the for loop. Okay, so why it is throwing error? Because this is a long Here it is, we set it as a int. So let's see whether we get the int here also. If it throws error, we can solve it. Okay, yeah, that's okay. I mean, anyway, long is not going to happen here. It's fine, we can change it. Okay, then sum of the year also must be long. We no need to do the conversion from the int to long. Okay, so plus equal to, right now it is a 0, right? When I run this, what will be the I'll assume that it is going to work for next 10 years. The first time I will be 10, and next time it is minusing, right? So then 10 plus 9 plus 8 plus, so it will be putting something like that, then we will get the final number. Okay, so we know the sum of the year of digits, right? Okay, in order to calculate, so now almost we have come to the equation, right? So the depreciable expense, this is a depreciable expense. Did we write anywhere depreciable expense? Yeah, no, here it is, depreciation expense, something like that. Maybe you copy this, we'll use those variable. What we need to do, put the comment. So depreciation expense, depreciable cost, correct? It is there, into remaining useful life asset. It is here, correct? In this case, this is a remaining useful year, correct? Slash sum of the years digit, it is correct. Okay, now what we get, the depreciation expense of the current year, assume. Okay, just current year. So how do we save this? I mean, where do we save this? So we know this is the expense for the current year, like a 10th year. When we come to the 9th year, so we can remove this. Okay, current value we can calculate, right? So from the, okay, they already calculated the salvage and all, correct? From the depreciable cost, they done the remaining. Depreciable cost is always a depreciable. Okay, the remaining years in sum of the years of digit. Now we know. No, we can remove this. Okay, now see, this is, no, my only worry is we calculated the depreciation expense. I mean, up to this equation we done, everything is right, but assume if we are running for a first year, this line is something we have done. For the second year, we should not apply the same because the values are varying here. Okay, we are taking a depreciable cost from the purchase cost, but the next year it is not the case. Okay, now what we need to do, like the same thing we did it here, right? The current value is, okay, just for a sake, okay, this is the depreciation expense, depreciable cost into remaining year. Okay, again we can apply the same thing, depreciable cost. So you can depreciate this cost into this asset called the depreciable expense, right? So if I reduce, then I'll get the current value. Okay, so we get the current value of the asset. This equation is fine only for the first year. When it comes to the second year, how do we calculate? So we need to go to the previous method. So we need to assume I am in the third year. For the third year, when I calculate, how should I calculate? I have to calculate for the rest of the year. So which means we need to look for both side of the loops. Okay, I know it is little difficult. Let's try that. So we get the purchased year from the current time to current time minus purchased time in order to calculate how many years this particular asset is already served. Okay, so the number of years in use is something already with us. So when you calculate the first year, I'll try to put everything into the loop. Okay, then I will validate whether this looks okay. All right, so instead of I, we'll put something like a year. Okay, year year 0 in the sense the first year. Okay, we don't need to change the loops and all. So in the year 1 we are coming and we are calculating, I mean this is in the year 1 we are calculating the current time. This is okay for the first year, but what about the second year? So then we need to reduce 1 from this. Yeah, anyway we'll write a test case where we can, I know, calculate the value minus year. Okay, so assume the first year, assume it's a 0. Okay, the remaining year, again it's a full 10 year, it will do the full 10, it will work. So the current value we calculated, we set. Now it come to the second year. Okay, assume the second year in sense that's a time between you purchase and you calculate this. Okay, so in the second year when you go and calculate, it is remain the same, but from the expiry date, instead of I'm taking the current date, I mean current time, after I calculated how many more year in the particular asset will work, from that I reduce the current usage year. That is, if it is a second year, it will minus from the loop, so that instead of 10, this time it will calculate from 8, 10, something like that. So then it will calculate from the depreciable, I mean depreciable cost, current value depreciable cost minus 1. Okay, this only the salvage, these things are confusing me for this equation alone. Let's go and explore. Here, so the salvage is something you are going to get at the end of the day, so that every time when you calculate, sorry, every time when you calculate, you are calculating from the depreciable cost. The depreciable cost is never changed. It is always same, that we are setting into the current value. Yeah, I believe this is right. But what we can do after this, we will write a test case where we'll pass this number. So let's say we'll create one dummy asset and we'll put that, we'll do the calculation and we'll validate whether, okay, I'm assume this is the third year, whether I'm getting the appropriate value which we can match against this particular one. Okay, so I believe this is okay for now. All right. Yeah, so the next one what we need to do is the declining balance method. We did a little extra study on this to find out whether this method is right, because this example is a little complicating example. So I find the another example with very useful and really simple. So by aligning to this particular example, what we did has some correction. So here we need that the value of the depreciation factor and the total number of the sum of total years. So let's go and rework this one. Um, let's go here. Say in this sum of years digit method. So let's find out the depreciable cost that is there in the equation. That's correct. And we need to find the um, total number of years. So I would say that in order to calculate, I'll take the same one. So in order to find the total number of years, I'll find the asset dot get expiry at dot get time minus the purchase time, which means we need to find the total number of years this will be in use. Use in mill is um, and use in years. Okay, so we get the other I would say that total years, um, total years of use. Okay, so I'll use the same pattern. um, so I now get the millisecond and find the year. So we now find the factor of 5 and we need to find the sum of the years digit, correct, like this. So we have already written here. Let's so we need to really need the same year digit method. So the remaining usage in millis, it's not required. What we need to do is total years of use is greater than 0, I minus minus. Then if we go like that, what will get the sum of the years of digit, which means we are getting this 15, correct. So now will the depreciation factor is basically in loop, correct. So we may remove this, that's fine. Sum of years of digit, total years of use is here. So let's go by the loop. We'll take the I mean this same loop. So here again the total years of use. Let's calculate this particular thing. Whatever we have here, let's copy this and put it here. So the depreciation, we might have a depreciable cost, right? It is already there. So the depreciation expense, this is what we are trying to calculate. The depreciation expense is the depreciable cost, okay, and the depreciable cost is purchased cost minus salvation, and into total sum of years and the total years of use. Then we will find out the depreciation expense, that is we'll get this particular value in this equation. Now the current value is depreciable cost minus depreciation expense is the current value after the first year. So better we can remove. So luckily we find the best example to do this calculation. So now still there needs some fix. Okay, assume if it is a second year, it is taking from the, again it is taking a depreciable cost. So this is the only thing we need to change. So instead of taking the depreciable cost, we need to take the like asset dot get current cost is what we need to take. From there we need to take the remaining work. You see, every year they are calculating the current cost and they are calculating the sum of years method. However, when we come to the first time, the current cost will be blank, right? So what we do here, as soon as when we first time come into this method, we'll set up the current cost as a depreciable cost. So when it comes to first time the method, it will calculate the purchase date rate minus salvage. It will set the current cost. Then every loop it will take the current cost. You see, they minus, I mean in this example, especially in this example, the purchase cost is 30 lakhs and the salvage is 1 lakh. They remove the salvage amount to find the depreciable cost. So the useful year is 5 and the sum of useful years 15. So based on that we calculated. So this looks now perfect based on the example. Now we find out. All right. So this looks okay. Anyway, as I told you, it is always important to run the test cases for all this with, if I really put a test case in that, if I enter this particular amount, this particular depreciation should happen in my calculation, then it will be, the program is good. Okay, that will focus later. Let's continue to write the remaining method. So now the declining balance method is what we are going to write. Go to the method. So void declining method, we are going to put asset. Okay, and use the typical method. Sorry about that, declining balance method. Okay, so here what they see is the current book value minus salvage into depreciation rate. So it's a very simple, and year on year they say that the depreciation rate, they find what is the depreciation, they finding it the remaining amount.
Same as this before.
Yeah, exactly. So what we can bring in, we'll go and take the diminishing balance, which is exactly similar as my peer programmer told. So here what we are going to do is, um, so we are going to calculate like this, right? Let's find out. So here are they, yeah, here they are really reducing the salvage cost. Always we need to work out the, we set the current, I mean, let's put this way. Where is the depreciable cost? That is always best thing to use the same model. Okay, so we got the depreciable cost. The depreciable cost is set into the current cost. Okay, so now what we need to find out, we need to find a depreciation amount based on the depreciation percentage, correct? So before we need to go loop, right? In order to go loop, we need to find it usage in millis, that is, so here when I calculate here, what we need to do, so I0, the usage in years, so how many, here what we do, usage in millis, current time minus purchased at, then we come to know what is the total years the product in use, and we set the current cost. Anyway, we can remove this because we already set the current cost on the top. So by going by loop, we should not use the same variable with a new declaration, right? So we set the, we get the current cost, and the depreciation expenses, depreciable cost into asset into depreciation rate. Like they mentioned the depreciation rate, we divided by 100, then we get the percentage. Okay, so then that become a current value and we set. Okay, so based on the number of year, let's say it's a 10-year car, we are at the third year, it goes the third loop and it will calculate the last current value set, it will expire. So this looks pretty easy and simple because based on the existing calculation that we already worked out. So now instead of copy paste, we'll go on to find out the next method, annuity method. Okay, so how do we calculate? They say the annuity, let's see whether we have any examples. Okay, let's understand annuity, but there is no I would say that examples, right? So the annuity equal to, okay, so the annuity, here they say their company purchases a machine worth of 7 lakh, which has estimated life of 7 years. If the sum were invested somewhere else, it would have earned a fine interest of 10%, calculated annuity depreciation. So they mentioned some calculation here, and we need to, let's understand how the calculation really works. In order to do that, they say depreciation is annuity minus, they apply some equation that's called a the depreciation of the current year or whatever. Okay, so here I copy paste simple JavaScript example in order to do the um, annuity method. Once we get the annuity, then in order to find the depreciation, annuity minus I, the interest rate percentage into book value of the start of the year. Okay, yeah. So now can you find the annuity? In order to do this, I written the calculation using the JavaScript. When I study, I just written a small JavaScript. So I take this. Okay, here we'll use a similar method. Okay, I'll copy this one. Um, Copy paste, and instead of declining method, we'll call this as a annuity method. Okay, so remaining these are all the same, and useful year is remain the same. Let it be. I mean, all this, let it be. We need to find out the annuity using this particular equation. So here, I mean, my concern is whether we need to use this inside of the loop, because the interest rate of the percentage interest rate, they are multiplying.
10%, 0.1.
Yeah, so just copy paste this. Here you put this. Okay, here let's put a longer double. We'll come back. So this is a purchase cost, right? Get asset dot get purchase rate. Okay, so here I'm not sure why they are not calculating the um, salvage amount, right? So everywhere we need to look at the salvage, but see whether here we need to, I mean, this approach is that if I go and put the amount in somewhere else, let's say I'm going to buy a car for 10 lakhs, instead of 10 lakhs, if I go and invest that money into, let's say, fixed deposit or any other investment, what return I will get it out of that, that's what is going to calculate. But here for some reason they are not calculating it, because salvage you will get at the end of the year of life of the asset, but this is a capital based, so that we can leave the salvage. So here we can do like um, let's say, I mean, what name we can put for this. So okay, we can go just one line. Annuity code. Okay, asset purchase at, I'll put this, I'll put this one, but it will be very complicated. Okay, I'm just trying to find out the name of it for now. In order to make it easy, I'll go with the long, so sorry about that. So asset purchased cost into the 0.1, where it comes from, the um, interest rate. Okay, so the interest rate is, so now we are going to get in the UI, if somebody select the asset is under annuity method, from the UI we need to get the interest rate percentage. If somebody invests the capital into some other business, we need to get it.
But depreciation rate only.
No, it's not a depreciation. It is a interest rate percentage. So see here, I write in the I into TDA. I is where interest total rate or something. Okay, so um, so let's check whether asset has I would say interest rate. Okay, interest rate is not there. Here we can, now we are going to introduce a new column, so that as we add into the Spring Boot will automatically add that into the database. So it's a easy thing. Here we can put it like interest rate nullable is true, so it is not going to damage any existing thing, existing records. All right, so the interest rate we are bringing in. I do save this. Then once I save, I need to create the get and set methods. Okay, source. Um, Sorry, if you don't see the screen eclipse, you need to see the get and setter function. Then it will create the necessary code. Once it's done, come here. Here we need to put like a asset dot get the interest rate slash 100. That's the interest percentage. Okay, and then similarly we need to go the same equation, the I, right? So then in order to simplify this equation, we'll find out, let's say, double interest rate. Okay, we don't need to key we need not to key in every place. In order to simplify, I copy this, I put this here, and I put this here. Okay, here the 7 is for what? 7 is um, the number of years, right? Here they say where it will work for 7 years, in the sense they put a 7 in the I mean they find the total number of year. Okay, if we are buying a car for that will, we expect that it will work for 10 years. Instead of buying the car, we put a 10 lakhs into fixed deposit. Then we have to calculate the number of year, right? So here, in order to calculate the total number of year, we calculated somewhere, right? In the previous equation, total number of use in year. Yeah, I mean from the expiry date to purchase date, we need to calculate in order to get the total number of years in use. So then if you go there and put 7, okay, now we got the value. This is not annuity. I'll put a. Sorry about that. I don't know what the best name I can find out. I'll say A and B, annuity denominator and denominator or something like that. Okay, here interest rate, correct? This is the interest rate, and this is the total number of years in use. So let's see only the typecast related error. Let's see what. So it says no suggestion. Oh, this is not asset purchase rate. It's asset purchased cost, correct? Asset purchased cost into interest rate into. I mean rest is okay, but mostly like a double int cost conversion. So cannot convert from double to long. No problem. Keep the double. I'm fine. This one also keep the double. I'm fine. Now the annuity is annuity A by annuity D. Okay. Now we got the annuity, correct? So then annuity depreciation of the current year, correct? No, still we haven't worked out a depreciation. Okay. So the depreciation is annuity into book value of the start of the year. Okay. So now this is the total annuity value, but what I'm not sure whether I have to calculate this here. No, they mentioned it the full amount, right? The full purchase amount. Okay. Here only we need to go the annuity. So here we can copy the value. So usage in years, which means it starts from 0. If it is a third year, then they say the book of the start of the year. So here we already set the current cost value, right? So here we need not to calculate the current cost like this, because they don't talk about the salvage. Okay, so get the asset cost directly. We know the depreciable cost. Okay, it will be here. Can remove it. Current depreciable cost equal to, or another way, depreciation expense equal to, or depreciation equal to. Fine. The depreciable cost is the current cost of the thing. Okay. If that is really confused, we can remove this also, nothing wrong. So the current cost into, sorry, the annuity into annuity minus interest into current cost, correct? Annuity minus the rate of interest into current cost. Okay, so we're done. The depreciation of the first year is done. Now what we can do, the actual value we need to set, the current cost minus the depreciation, okay, is the new current cost value. So now we're done. Again, as I told you, we need to always do the test case to find out things are okay or not okay. So let's move on to the next method, insurance policy method. So there are, there are at least 5 more. So let's find out the insurance policy method. We buy a car for 10 lakhs. We pay premium to the insurance. Correct. So we pay insurance year on year. At the end of the life, the insurance company will pay the full amount to buy another car. So what we pay is the premium, is the money we lose, which called depreciation. Okay. So we buy a car for 10 lakhs. We already spent 10 lakhs. We pay premium to the insurance. Okay, we pay premium to the insurance. Okay. At the end of the life, the insurance company will pay the full amount to buy another car. Okay. So, huh, no, they say if you are paying the premium at the end of the life of the car, the insurance company will pay 10 lakh to buy another car. I don't know it is whether 10 lakhs or whatever, but here the example is not so clear. We lose, which is called the depreciation. So, I mean, these policies or these methods are not so popular. That's the reason when I search somewhere, no clear-cut example. But now, how are we going to calculate this? So, how much we are going to pay insurance, which is not we are calculating. You got it? So let's go this. Okay, I'll tell you. It's I think it is very simple, I guess. Insurance policy method is one of the simple method, I believe. So let's go and work it out, the insurance policy method. So what they say in simple term is, whatever the amount we pay to the insurance company, that become the depreciation, because at the end of the life we will get the insurance refund to buy the new asset. So that's what the whole objective about that. So what we need to do here is that, as usual, we need to get the current cost of depreciable amount, right? We already have it. So depreciable amount is purchased cost minus salvage amount. So we have a depreciable cost. The depreciable cost is set as a current cost as soon as the method is being called. So now we need to work it out, like the usage in millis, how long it is in use, the particular asset. So how do we calculate? So from the current time to the purchased at time is what the overall usage in millisecond. I'm calculating here in milliseconds, and we convert that into the year, so we get the number of year, that is, I mean, the particular asset in the use. So we need to get the interest rate. I mean, I can call it as the interest rate. This is a basically a premium asset. Let's look at um, what column is holding the interest. So the insurance ID is there, and there must be one more column called let's look at we saw yesterday that, so interest rate. So this is not really interest rate, so this is more like the insurance premium. Okay, um, because here we have an insurance ID, there is another table called insurance. Okay, so there is no such table, which means the I think it should be asset insurance. Okay, the asset insurance is already there, and in that we have the amount. Okay, the particular insurance amount is mentioned here, and let's go and take it from here. Okay, so it is under the asset insurance. So how do we calculate? Um, let's go and take the insurance asset insurance, take the same one. um, Now we need to import that particular asset repository, asset insurance repository, insurance. Oh, I'm sorry, here we need to do the auto wiring, auto wired. So let's use the same name for the simplicity. Okay, it is already there, right? As I told you, it was already this particular declarations are there. So let's go and use the same one, asset repository dot find by ID, or else return the null. Okay, so how can we calculate here? Get the insurance ID from the asset. So every asset, or at least whatever the asset under the insurance method, must have the insurance ID. So we are getting from there. Assume the particular insurance ID is missing. I mean, we need to do the safe check, equal to null. Then we need to simply return. Okay, so before we return, what we can do here is, let's see the asset as any message, set message, set see, we can place any description of the asset, insurance, long name, manual ID. So there are lots of values are there, but we don't have any particular message to put a alert. Okay, so what we can do is, within the asset itself we can go and add some message column. Let's try to add, let's keep it like information, something like that. It's not a log column, it's a plain text column. Nullable is true. I mean, for nullable, by default nullable is true. We need not declare the nullable column, and add the information, and then add the getter and setter to save. Okay, we created. See, to be honest, we need to declare this as a log file, and however, the log file we need to implement later. For now, we can set this information, so that can be used. Set information here we'll use this. I mean, this ERP works in a multiple language. We should usually set the status code and then it will populate. Just for this function, I will write the name. Okay. I mean, this is something we need to validate at the time of creating asset itself. Okay. Insurance um, is missing. Insurance record is missing for the asset. Okay. So it will return now. Now we need to find out the insurance amount. The insurance uh, domain object will have an insurance amount. So now we need to, it is a simple calculation, right? Um, let's say double insurance amount equal to 0. So in the usage year, in case if this particular asset is used in the last 10 years or 5 years, we need to go by loop. For every year we are going to calculate. So the insurance amount of plus equal to, which means we are incrementally plus for every year. If this calculation is difficult to you, I'll type like insurance amount equal to the existing insured amount for the last year plus the current one. So the current one, of course, the insurance amount dot get amount. It got asset insurance. So we saw that asset insurance had the amount. Let's check whether amount is in under getter setter. So the getter setter is missing here. So right click, go to the source and click the getter setter and do select all and generate. So this will create a getter setter for it. So now we can go and get the get amount. All right. Now we got the insurance amount for the current year. So now we are incrementally adding. So now this become the okay, this is not a current cost, of course, right? So what we can do is we need to reduce this from the depreciable amount. Okay, so from the depreciable amount we need to reduce the overall insurance premium paid cost in order to calculate the current value. Okay, so now we got the current value. So now we calculated what is the current value for the asset. So this is done, right? So as I told you, the insurance policy method is super simple, um, because the insurance premium what we pay, it does not attract any interest or a capital gain or compound effect, right? It's just premium you are keep on paying. But at this particular method, at the end of the insurance, I mean at the end of the life, you get the full amount to buy the new asset. So in this case, the asset manager will negotiate with the insurance company to calculate, how many EMI, I mean, how many number of premiums should be made, and which is, equivalent to buying the new asset at the end of the current asset life cycle. So this is really super cool. I don't know how much of these methods are in existence. Okay, so now let's move on to the sinking fund method. Um, as usual, go and duplicate this one, because based on my study, the sinking fund method also similar to this one. I will just first create the method of sinking fund method. So we're done. And for the sinking method also, we calculated the I mean, here they illustrated the example. For example, someone buy a transformer at a cost of 150,000 and it is useful for 25 years. If the scrap value, that is the salvage amount, is 10,000 and the rate of annual compound interest is 7. So then calculate. This is the equation. This is a pretty simple equation. So just try to calculate then this particular equation what you see, what has been illustrated here. The annual amount for sinking fund is given. So this is the per annum cost. Okay. Let's go and take this equation and put it here. So as you know that we always calculate the depreciable amount at first. Yes, we did it. And we need to calculate per year sinking fund, right? So let's go and do the double is like every fund can be a float value. So I create a double as a variable here. This one is, the depreciable cost. We have the depreciable cost already, and this is a percentage. Okay, 7%. So they mentioned here. So what we can do is we need to find out what is the interest rate, right? Let's go and check in the asset to see do we have any interest. Yeah, we have an interest rate column already, correct? So let's go and find out asset. In order to simplify, double interest rate equal to asset dot get interest rate divided by 100 is what we have as the interest rate. So we can use this in the calculation, and it's math power of 1 plus interest rate comma 25 years and minus 1. So here how do we calculate the 25? We need to have the total number of years. That's what they mentioned in this figure, right? So we need to calculate the year of the useful life. So we calculated that particular variable in the previous method itself, like in the annuity example. So I will take that, I can explain. So how do we calculate the total years of use millis, which means how long this asset can be used. So how do we calculate from the expiry date to purchase date? We calculate to in order to get the total number of years that the asset can be used. Right now we get the total years of use, and here we set the total years of use minus 1. Okay, now we got into the error. Let's check what is all about. So there is a one close bracket is missing, so the depreciable cost into interest rate slash math power. Okay, so the multiplication is for across, right? Yeah, for both the denominator and denominator. Okay, now we got the sinking fund. So from the sinking fund, what we can do, let's remove the other copied code. So we have a sinking fund. We now know what is the annual sinking fund, correct? So whatever this fund we paid, or the year on year the sinking fund to be um, added or summarized to get the total depreciation from the asset, right? So now we need to find out how long this asset is in use. So how do we calculate? From the current time to the purchase time is what the usage time. Now we have a usage in years. Okay, just we can simply multiply, but we need to change some of the domain object value. what I do is, um, so I would say that we have a current value equal to, here we already set the current value. What I can do is the current value equal to asset dot get current cost minus the particular year sinking fund. So sinking fund is not vary year on year, but we just go by loop and we are reducing it. So we know the current value, we set the current value. In the next loop, say if we bought this asset 3 years before, when it calculate year on year, it will reduce the sinking fund from the respective year value, and then we get the current value. So now we done the calculation for sinking fund method. So this is a, I would say, maybe you can, I'm sure you can do even better equation here, but I'm trying to write the most simplest one because at the end of the day, when I push this code to the GitHub, any new developer should be able to easily learn this simple arithmetic equations. So that's what my that's what I wish. Okay, so of course we are going to complete. Luckily, we have a three more method, but if I look at all these three, the use-based method like mileage, the use-based method like output, the use-based method like a working hour. See, all these three are basically a same method. They given as an example. So what we can do, instead of 9, we can call it as 9.A or 9.1. Okay, it's not, as I told you, it is not a new different method. So for example, you buy a car, that for your office, the depreciation is calculated based on the mileage or based on the number of mile that the car already driven, right? So that's the way, even if you buy a second-hand car, they will check how many kilometer that the car already ran, right? So that's a mileage based calculation. And the other one is the output based calculation. For example, you buy a Xerox machine and or a copier machine, and the copier machine, the company says that the copier machine can produce 1 lakh copies. Then how will you calculate? You will calculate the 1 lakh, that is whatever the purchased cost divided by 1 lakh is what the per copy cost. Okay, so then in a month you are producing 10,000 copies, then you know what is the depreciation, right? So 10,000 copies into per copies usage, per copy the product, I mean per copy cost, then you will get the depreciable amount. Likewise, so the car or usage or some machinery is based on the number of hour it can run. So I don't have an immediate example, but as you know, this is really, I would say, super simple, right? So how do we calculate? Almost we are going to complete this this particular equation. Then we can only write the test cases. All right. So let's go and use based method. Unlike other method, we are only passing the asset, right? So in this case, I would take one more argument, but I'm sure I'm not going to use it now, but I'm just reserving. Okay. So instead of, I will just call it as a method as a string, then we will see whether we can pass it as a hour based or output based or number of mileage based or something. But right now we can just add one argument, like a parameter. Okay, so again, every asset we buy, it will have some salvage amount. So purchase amount minus salvage amount is called the depreciable amount. Now we set the current cost. Okay, um, so we need to find out, I mean, look at all the aspect. um, sorry, my Eclipse got exit. I'll open. What are all the three values we need to calculate here? So the depreciation amount we calculated already, and we need to calculate. Um, Sorry about that. This got exited. Okay. So if you buy a car, they say it can run for you know I would call like 300,000 kilometer for overall its life. Then we need to find out what is the um, like per hour the depreciation, right? So um, let's see. I mean, whether it is the hour or the kilometer or the number of copies. Let's check what the asset domain object has. Okay, so here I'm sure there is no such column, holding used hours per day and NCID, warranty, cost, insurance, expiration information, currency, salvage, depreciation. So, okay, so that particular column is not there. As I always recommend, instead of integer, go with a double value like float value. Okay, so uh, what the name we can mentioned. So how will they run? They'll say that it can run for 300 kilometers, sorry, 300,000 kilometer, or it can produce, um, um, I would say, what is that? It will produce, if it is a copier machine, they'll say you can produce 1 lakh copies, right? So um, what we can do is unit output, max output, max output. Okay. Hope this name um, is okay, I guess, right? So nullable I'll set to false because I'm going to set the max output is by default to 0. So in case if it is nobody entered the value, it will alarm the user, right? So I'll set the max output to 0 because anyway the user will input the number, and in terms of the max output will also capture the max output unit. All right, so that will be basically a string of uh, nullable false, and I would say I'll go with the column definition, okay, because it is much simpler in terms of writing direct to MySQL code. So the column definition is where char, that is the particular column can hold 8 characters and not null. The default is, I assume that kms, kilometers. Okay, of course you can produce the copies or hour or unit or kilometer, whatever. Okay, so max output unit max output unit. Okay, so as we mentioned, we can go the kms as a default one. Anyway, when the user input, I mean create the asset, they will always enter what is the unit of measure. All right, so I saved this. As I told you, we can also create the getter and method by going to the source and getter and method column. I do click generate. Okay, so these are all the two lines, four methods we created. I save this. Now what we can do, we can collect the number of units, right? Let's say double max unit equal to asset dot get max output. Okay, so the maximum output to what it can produce. So let's keep the same variable name so it's easy. the max output plant, correct? Now what is the per unit cost? So per unit cost equal to the depreciable amount is I mean the overall depreciable amount is 1 lakh of the copier machine by which we can produce 1 lakh copies. Then we know that one copy rate is 1 rupees, right? So if you produce one copy, then the asset got depreciated by 1 rupee. So now we calculated the total number of here is let's check out the three model, right? The KMS, it doesn't matter with the overall year. The number of unit it can produce doesn't matter with the um, total years of the machine. And the total number of hour it can run, so it is also not required. Then we can remove it. We can remove the interest rate and sinking method and all. So now what we need to find out is the usage in mill is how long it is in use. That is, it is not useful, right? What the only use is at any given point in time, or in another way, whenever the asset is updated as to the current number of output. For example, when you enter, the car is driven for 50,000 kilometers so far, then the depreciable amount will be calculated. Or a copier machine is produced so far 25,000 copies, then we need to enter. So in any office, they will periodically, maybe month on month, they will enter the data, right? So now how do we calculate the depreciable, I mean the current value? So the current value is depreciable cost, or sorry, what we do, the per unit cost multiply by the number of units it's produced so far, right? That's a very simplest equation, but it is maintenance is difficult because whenever there is a change, like month on month, somebody has to enter the number of kilometer or number of the copies. So where they will enter? They will enter into the asset. So now we forgot to add one more thing. Okay, here we added the max output, right? In addition to that, we'll also enter produced output, or yield output, or produced output. Produced output is not, I mean, let's keep the simple name, output produced. Okay, maybe if the car is 5,000 kilometers ran, then its output is 5,000 kilometers, like a copier. So I go and output produce, the default value again 0. All right, here I'll set the default value, double, not null, default is 0.0, and the same applies to the max output. Okay, output produced, somebody will keep record of the number of unit the asset got produced, and now create a getter setter for this. Now we can go and get output produced so far. So the current value is per unit cost multiplied by asset asset current, the total output produced is um, what it yield, but the current value is supposed to be the depreciable cost minus the per unit cost multiplied by total output produced. So then we get to know the current value. So we added the current value using the use based method. You know that we haven't used the method argument. That's okay, you can keep it in the future, because because this particular method is doing for three things. If you may need a few additional values for improve this, just keep it, or another way, just remove it. It's fine as long as it is not in use. Let's remove. Okay, so if you look at overall, this is not dealing, of course, this is dealing with some database. So I use the asset depreciation method under the service class, which is fine. So we can go and remove the unused imports, right? Go and source. There is something called organize import menu. I clicked it. It removes unwanted, unused or unwanted imports. Okay, so the remaining things are this one, we can remove it. I will definitely go and add this documentation properly because as I told you, I will use this service class to push to the Maven repository so that you can use this. I'll also ensure this is available as an open source. So we done, right? So what is the next step? The next step is that we need to go and create the test case. All right. So how do we write the test case? Go to the test folder in your Spring Boot and create a necessary file. I would say I will go here, testful utils. I'm just checking where I can write. So here I can, I better I can write here. So let's create a new test class for the asset. Okay, so assets, test assets, test assets. Okay, let's, okay, I'll keep the, let's not use the plural into the file names. Asset, let's remove. So what is going to be our test case? You all know this particular case is actually involving the database, right? So if it involves any database action, please write the Spring Boot test annotation, because if you're writing a pure core Java classes under test case, this Spring Boot test annotation is not required. But in this case, it is involving um, the database. So I'm importing the database artifact. So I'm done now. Let's go and asset depreciation. Okay. um, what we can do, we all know that we have written in total of let's go and update the TOC. I mean, I just changed the methods, right? So overall it is a 9 different types of asset depreciation that we have calculated. So we need to write, I'm sure I'm not going to write a 9 test cases, but I'll write a test cases for everything, but in a very simplest form. Okay, so let's remove this. Let's create a new asset. Okay, asset, new. Okay, I'm not sure whether it got any constructor function. No. So what we can do here, um, we can remove this unwanted maybe later also. So I created the asset, right? We all know there are some, even though this particular asset class has many properties for this particular ERP, we need only few things, right? What exactly it is? Asset of dot set purchase at, assume we purchased um, in the date of let's go new date. How will you get some back date? Java get a date 5 years before. Okay, we can use the calendar function to create the date. Okay, or there must be some Very cool. Libraries are available. Yeah, Zoda time or zoned time is there are many, but I'm not sure this role is the core Java class. Um, let's try now. Okay, instant. If can I get this as a date? Um, I'm not sure it will cast to the particular date. Okay, it's throwing error. Let's see what it is. Change the purchase start to intent. Okay, then how do I get the date? Dot get date or something? No. Okay, then really we um, can use the local time. So let's say 5 years before. Assume we purchase the asset. We can use the Joda time because it is a very powerful. I used it. So it is a local time. I try the another one, Java time. Okay. So we'll use the calendar function, Java calendar 5 years before. So it's a core and it's easy. All right. So how can we do? We can we may create a, I think we might have a utils class. Okay, let's check out time utils. It might be there already because it's a ERP anyway. So it takes minus, it is already there, right? So minus minutes, minus, let's see whether we have a year. Okay, okay, so the year function is not there, but you know it is very easy to create. So minus years. Okay, enter years. Okay, so it's easy, right? We got it. Just the 3 lines of code. This is a static month. Uh, sorry, year minus. So sorry about that. I should have used this already. Okay, asset dot set purchased at time utils time utils written within the CRP dot minus year minus. So just make sure we use the same month plus month minus year minus. Okay, so we send the year of 5 years, right? So someone reduce the, yeah. So I'm not sure why we need to have a minus 1 plus 1 because we can even pass the minus number, it will calculate, but that's fine. Okay, we need not to modify the overall because it might be used somewhere else. Okay, so we minus here purchase cost and sorry, purchase at data set. What are the value we need? Let's set into the domain object. Okay, purchased cost, purchase cost. Let's assume. I mean, please do some better numbers so that you can quickly assess without much of calculator. Okay, so assume I'm going to buy a product of for 10 lakhs, right? So I purchased this for, okay, again 10 lakh is, I mean, too many zeros, let's not get confused. So I'm going to buy a product for 1100. Okay, and my salvage asset is just 100. salvage is going to be 100. Okay, it is anyway, it's double, right? So set the salvage. Here, see, purchase cost is in the double, right? Yeah, that's fine. So we have a purchase cost, we have a purchased at for the asset. I mean, in order to do all the test cases, we need to make all the necessary configurations. So in order to run quickly, the first or the foremost simple one, like um, the straight line method. Okay, can we see whether we have all the variable here? Purchased at salvage. Yeah. Okay, let's go and check this straight line method, asset depreciation service. Let's go and import the asset improvement service. Asset, sorry, auto wired asset depreciation method service asset, and do the necessary imports here. Dot um, straight line depreciation method, right? Yeah. So we passed this asset already, right? After we pass, it is not going to return because it's a mutable object, so the value will be set. Here, let's go and do the sys out of the asset. So let's check at the asset class has toString method. Otherwise, please put the toString. So it is easy to print and see the values. All right. Okay. I know it's too much values, but fine. So let's go and run the test case. Um, okay, let's run from the. So I'm sorry, you are not seeing the menu, right? If you're a Eclipse user, you know what I'm clicking here. Let me explain. So I'm going to the right menu. I'm running on the run as unit test because my cursor is with this particular test case. And when I click run the unit test, it will exactly execute the particular method. All right. So it is running, you see here, right? The launch test case. We'll give it a minute and let's see the result. Because we initialize the Spring Boot, it will, you know, include all the repository and all. Now let's run the test case, but I just found out that before running this, we need the expiry date also to be set. So what we can do in terms of setting the expiry date is, let's say asset dot set expiry at, okay, assume this will expire in next 5 years. Okay, so set the year, add something like the function. So we are going to add the year. So we'll copy this one and let's say year add. So we are going to add next 10 more years. Okay, so what's the difference between this and that? um, so this function is basically incorrect, right? So year add, let it be the year add rather year minus. Okay, so we can pass the minus or plus. Okay, so the purchase just 5 years before, and this will expire after 5 years, which means the overall it is 10-year. um, Run the test for now. Go and right click and click run and unit test. So let's see what result we get. I assume that the values are meeting for the calculation. So because it is a straight line method, I just worked out some equation like what is the cost, which year purchase, what is the expiry date, and the term and all. So most likely after the 5 year now, right? So right now the current, it was purchased in 2018 according to the current date. After 5 years, so the 1,000 rupees purchased is 1100, and salvage is 100, so which is the depreciable cost is 1000. So after 5 years the asset worth could be close to 500, right? So let's see, this is a result. I mean, I'm not asserting here because every equation is different. We will not make out, but I'm going to do the calculation later. I'll find out. But let's see one of this example. Let's say purchase cost. So the current cost after 5 years is 500 rupees. That is, yeah, 500 rupees, right? Yes, that looks right. So likewise, we need to go and validate, or another way, test the other test cases. All right. But if you are a software developer with accounts background, maybe you can understand this jargon better. But otherwise, don't worry. We are all developers. It's all about numbers and some logic, some jargon. So we need to spend little time to learn the finance, because as all you know, finance is a basic life skill for everyone to. So thanks for watching this video. I hope now you could implement this in your program. I will go and test this code with all the possible equations and validate it whether the numbers are okay and everything, and I will ensure that the code is pushed without a bug, and the calculations are validated against again validated with a finance expert, and I will ensure that this code is available as open source for you to pull and use. And also I will have a plan to push this as a repository to Maven. Thanks once again. Bye.